native Californian. I don't know if anybody else is over here. Oh, we got some. Okay, so I was born in Chico, California. See, that tells you where my parents went to college. And maybe a little more about my parents than you guys want to know. So in any case, I quickly moved out of the state. My parents followed a job up to Idaho. So I grew up on a farm in Idaho. And I did construction when I was getting through high school. And my dad had a construction business. I worked for him for a while. And every time he would walk by me and I'm down on my hands and knees, either smoothing out concrete or nailing something down, he'd go, "You like that? Hey, hate it, don't you? Go to college." So it worked. I went to college at University of Idaho, and I had learned to be an electrician. And so while I was in college, I worked for Idaho Power. That's in Idaho, it's a public utility. And it was a cool job. I had a job that everybody else at school wanted to have because they gave me a truck, number one, and number two, it had a cell phone in it. And a cell phone back then was a big deal. It didn't, it doesn't fit in your pocket. It wasn't one of those ones you could carry around. It was bolted into the truck in the center console, about the same size as the center console. And when the phone rang, it honked the horn and flashed the lights. So that was a cool thing. And you needed those. Idaho Power, anybody ever been to Idaho? It's a huge state. Lots of distance. You don't measure distances up there in miles, you measure them in hours. So a lot of my day, on the job would be drive all day long, spend the night in some flea bag hotel, get up, drive all day long again, and then the next morning report to the job site. So, but as an electrician, I got to see a lot of things from the construction side. And as I went back to school, and then I was trying to decide on a degree, electrician, I originally thought, I don't want to be an electrical engineer. I want to do something up in the mountains. I want to, go skiing and camping and that. So I thought I'd be a mining engineer until I went in a mine. So after I went in a mine, I don't know if anybody in this room's been in a mine. They're dark, small, and I'm a tall guy. You got to always duck your head. So I decided electricity looked a lot better, a lot safer. So I ended up with a degree in electrical engineering and came right back to California because, hey, they were at that time, and I'm going to date myself. This was late 80s, early 90s. I'll make that specific. I came back to California with the highest starting salary of anybody in my graduating class. And I thought that was great until I had to rent an apartment in California. Oh, where'd my money go? So I worked down here in a bunch of different jobs. Again, to stick to the theme, I didn't plan to get into facilities. I was an electrical engineer, believe it or not, doing nuclear power plants. So there haven't been a whole lot of nuclear power plants built in a long time. So I joined a group of 15 electrical engineers for ASEA Brown Boveri. And in 6 months, there were 2 of us left. So I got that message pretty quick and looked around for some other jobs, bounced around and ended up at a little company that I didn't know anything about called Intel Corporation. And back then, nobody knew what Intel was. We were sharing stories as we were sitting around. That was before the internet. There was no internet back then. That didn't exist. Before email. We did give people computers in facilities. I ended up as an electrical engineer being in the facilities group, designing electrical systems for fabs. But at that time, we gave new employees a computer that plugged into what we called the VAX, right? I don't know, nobody even knows what a VAX is. But back then, that whole IT department didn't even exist. So we gave you a phone and a computer at your first day on the job and welcomed you to the company. So I stuck with Intel through some really good times and retired, I guess it would be. I think the term earlier was matriculated, like that. Yeah. Matriculated out of Intel in about 2000 and bought half of the company, APT. So since then, I've just been doing what I liked to do when I was at Intel Corporation and never had time to do. But what kept me up at night after kind of becoming my own boss, number one, my 2 kids, they keep me up there. That happens all the time. But kind of on the same theme of safety, I hire people that I care about, and I like working with them. And I do not ever want to have to take that wrong kind of phone call. So you have a paternalistic attitude towards your employees and your coworkers, even your customers. So we really are, and it sounds corny nowadays, but we really are trying to solve problems and make things better for people. And along the way, trying not to get anybody killed or hurt in the process. So that's what keeps me up at night. I cover them? So I worked with a gentleman, and I'll use that term loosely, who every day would come in and yell at everybody in the office. That was his style. That's I think that there's management terms for those people, crisis managers or chaos managers. So he loved it when he could find a mistake or a problem that we didn't anticipate and solve, and so he would come in and yell and throw paper around and basically make people feel unwanted and not valuable. So I used that as an example that I will never be that way. If I'm irritated, and that's me, not my employee's problem, and certainly not my customer's problem. So that was the negative. Now on the positive side, I'm not
sorry.
Yeah, it wasn't anybody in this room. On the positive side, there's been a couple of different people, but I'll pick one that really inspired me that has a history with this organization. There was a guy who had a squeaky, kind of an old guy, squeaky voice and a German accent that probably influenced a lot of people in this room. But this guy's name was Eric Bergtron. He had a really interesting, if now we're in the generation, you guys can go do a Google search on that, or a Yahoo search, or a Bing search, figure out all about Eric Bergtron. He was a guy that ran facilities at National Semiconductor for 30 odd years or something like that. In any case, he was a guy, I met him late in his life, and he kind of, the squeaky voice and the German accent kind of throws you off. But I was impressed. He really helped other people, not for, making a buck off of them or trying to win a sale. He really was there just, if you were going to engage and work with him, he was going to give you his full attention and work with you. And valuable people like that, quality character like that, is rare. So I really, in the short time I worked with that guy, was very impressed. And he was, I guess, the tie into AFE. He was the guy that founded the local AFE chapter, 1950s, something like that, and ran this particular event for over 50 years. So that's the connection. So, there you go. This was actually an interview question. So I'm not going to tell the name of the guy that asked me, but he is still currently a president and CEO and founder, and he likes his wine, and he made a big cave in a hill not far from here. And I think that's enough said as to who that hint for that guy. But I was interviewing straight out of school, and one at the time was trying to decide how to get to California for the money that they were offering, all the extra money. And this guy, he was the last in a long line of interview questions. So I flew down here from Idaho. This was in the days when you actually had to go meet people instead of just call them up on a WebEx and look at them and talk to them. So I actually came down here, got picked up at the airport, met the whole team, went through a big interview session, and this guy was the last interview of the day. He walks in, sits down, and he says, you're in a rowboat, and in the rowboat, you are rowing around in a lake, and there's a rock in the bottom of the rowboat, and you throw it out in the water, and the rock sinks. Does the water level of the lake go up, down, or stay the same? That's all he asked. And he just sat there. He wouldn't say anything else. And I sat there and was thinking about it and trying to figure out how to answer it and drawing pictures and guessing, and I didn't get the job. So I learned a lot out of that, and I also learned there's ways to figure out questions that aren't the engineering way. So I'll challenge you guys, if you're the folks who are sitting here, you can actually experimentally deduce what the answer is, but you can make a rowboat, you can make a lake, and you can make a rock, and you can figure out if the water level in the lake goes up, down, or stays the same. But I'm not going to answer it for you.
If you were not in facilities in your facilities-related role, you had chosen another path. I'm just curious what would that have been?
I had the luxury of exploring that when I took a golden parachute from my employer, Intel Corporation. I had a year off with pay, and I got to go think about what I wanted to do next. And for those of you that do know me, I'm actually a redneck, an educated redneck. So I really love to go hunting and fishing and camping and ride horses, and I'll do all that stuff. So I thought, I'll go back to Idaho and I'll be a guide. I'll be an outfitter. You can actually buy licenses and run a business. So I spent time, this was a good thing I did this. I spent time with the guy who ran the business and just went on a couple of trips with him and his clients and talked to him about it. And what I got was, I watched clients come in and treat his guides like staff. And I don't know, it'll kind of depend on where you come from in society, but if you treat the janitors at your building like these people treated the guides, it was not a good thing. So what I picked up, and the guy was showing me this, he says, your clients don't have your values. Your clients are coming in and they're paying you to clean up after them. They expect you to pick up the cigarette butt that they flip out, on the ground. You knew by then my background. You're a Boy Scout. You like this. You leave it cleaner. You want to do the right thing. That's not what your customers and your clients will be doing. So, said make sure you either can buy in and you're willing to do that, or you got enough money to buy in and keep a layer between you and the people who are going to treat you like that. So I decided I better stick closer to home and do something different. So, but that was, if I could do it and had enough money to get that layer, I would love to go do that. Now, I can testify, along with everybody else up here, after deciding not to be a mining engineer, one of the things I did, just because I had some extra time in that last fifth year super senior year of college, I took something that they called, and this is also going to date me, the EIT review. Nowadays they call it the Fundamentals of Engineering exam. But I took that EIT review because I thought, I got to fill up, I need the 12 credits or whatever it is, so I might as well take that. And so I took the test at the end, and I was already taking a bunch of tests anyway for finals, so I took that test. And then, I got out in the professional world, and people started asking if I was going to get my PE. I had to look up what it even stood for. So, PE? I had PE in high school. So I looked it up, professional engineer. I thought, well, what's that mean? And what I got out of it was, it was meant you could actually put a little stamp on a drawing. So don't want to scare anybody off. You guys all know that engineers only produce paper, right? That's all we do. So, but you could put a stamp on it, sign it, and say that, yes, that is a professional engineer. And it's recognized by the state of California, Department of Consumer Affairs. So I thought, well, that sounds like a good idea. Maybe I'll do that. So a couple $100 later, and another review course, and then go take a test, and I got the thin envelope, which means I passed, not the thick envelope, which is go take it again. So, and that PE license meant that I had, for want of a better term, a stamp of approval that I knew what I was talking about. So I can go into a room, it's not one of those things that, I was on a level playing field when I graduated with just the electrical engineering degree. But now when I'm in the room and there's other electrical engineers, it's like, oh, yeah. Oh, but you're a PE? Oh, you win. Okay? So little things like that, and luckily that's one of those ones you do it once and you never have to do it again. Those sorts of things pay off in spades down the road. So make the investment now while you're still in the mode of school and everything, because it's really hard when you do it later. So I got a good one. It's not very technical, but it's a really good one. All of my mess ups are because of my big mouth. So I remember sitting in the audience of a big meeting where there were literally probably 1,000 people in the audience, and a pretty high-level executive was making a presentation, and there were a lot of negative comments. It was one of these, Q&A sessions. And there were a lot of people, because we had gone through some at the time, that company had gone through some layoffs and some things like that. And so I thought, I hadn't thought it through. I thought I would have a positive comment. So what I said was, and I should put it in context. In my mind, the context was we had just finished building a whole bunch of parking garages. And so I said, a lot of people have been bad about saying negative things about how bad things were. I wanted to thank you for solving the parking problem. So I meant you put in a bunch of parking garages. But what people heard was, oh, you laid off a bunch of people and now we can all find parking spaces. It's like, oh, that's not what I meant. That's what people thought. And you don't get those back. There's nothing you can do.